Hello, beautiful bastards. The name is Wolf, and welcome to my Cold Werebear, a potential cycle starter for the 1.0 release of last Epoch, obviously. If you're just here for the build planner and time code, you can check the description box below. Just a fair warning, I have a post-it note kind of approach to my build planner, as I am sharing my personal build planner with you. I will go over why I am doing the things that I am doing in the armor section, because, for example, I've got a red piece of gear, which is a legendary potential piece of gear, of course, and I'm doing that to kind of remind myself what to look out for moving forward through the progression of the character itself. But I'll talk about that later. Let's talk first about why Druid. Well, the true reason is that I know Druid will work. Druid has been a phenomenal stable pick for masteries for a very long time. It's super tanky. You can build super quick, super high single targets, super great AoE damage. You can do all kinds of crazy things, but we don't quite know yet what to expect with 1.0 and how things are going to be buffed and nerfed, right? But the Druid will always be a stable. One of my favorite Druid builds is going to be Cold Werebear. I made the same build about 10-11 months ago with some great success. I was able to farm high corruption levels. The build itself is fairly simple to understand. It's pretty straightforward to gear, and it can work without uniques, but also works phenomenal with uniques. And not only that, due to the wide variety of builds available on the Druid, you can also respec once you have some exceptional gear for perhaps a different version, right? A lot of flexibility, and this is a cycle starter where flexibility, of course, is very much appreciated. Now, this particular build is going to be very tanky, has good clear, acceptable single target, although at higher levels of corruption, it might lack that compared to other options. But this is just going to phenomenally skyrocket me into the early days of the cycle, get some gear, maybe start making some trades on that new trade auction house, and really start kicking off this, what hopefully will be a wonderful experience without server issues. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the gear. In terms of idols, we want 1, 2, and 3 crit avoidance. This allows us to cap our crit avoidance perfectly with some wiggle room, assuming we have 60 attunement. We also want a elemental res while transformed one with some health. That's the best combo you can get. We also want not 1 but 2 health stout idols with whatever resistances you need. Lightning res or all res are probably the most recommended, but you really have to kind of gauge on how your gear is doing. And then we do ultimately want to find a Throne of Ambition, but before that you can just run 2 1x2 idols for pure health, and then you can flip those out immediately without bricking your character once you get the Throne of Ambition. So this is kind of like a post-it note, for me at least, to keep an eye out. Now, in terms of blessings, now we are a cold damage build, so we want more cold damage. We want some cold shred, speaks for itself. Some armor for tanking, very, very good. We do prefer poison res, but if you get like a really high grand resolve of humanity, you can also pick that up. Just make sure you adjust your gear accordingly in terms of resistances. And then also we have grand hunger of the void, because most of our damage is spell damage. So we're constantly leeching while we're fighting, making it very difficult for us to get killed unless we get straight up one shot. Now, in terms of the gear itself, you might have gotten a little confused because you see red. Now, like I said, these are kind of post-it notes, because in a perfect world, sure, you would have a 4 LP Tears of the Forest, or Aurora even, if you want to go for a more tanky approach. Aurora being probably one of the better picks you can get, but this is not really League Start friendly. The reason why I call it a post-it note is because what I will most likely end up doing is a bone amulet, and there you go. But by making it so that I build my planner around a Tears of the Forest, I know for the fact that I can just switch things in or out without breaking my character, as the Tears of the Forest or the LP that I've added onto it does not have like resistances or any kind of like mandatory mods I can't easily get somewhere else, like Frailty on the gloves. So that's kind of like a post-it note for me, right? But yes, Tears of the Forest is also a fairly easy unique to pick up early or to find early, and that's going to help with quality of life in the early cycle for like permanent rage and sustain until you are strong enough and geared enough and leveled enough. Speaking of being geared enough and leveled enough, a Terra's Path is also an incredible boot. In the end, you ultimately want to run in a Terra's Path with some good LP, But until then, you can even run it just without if you have the tiers. But in case you're just looking for a regular base, I am most likely going to be running a Solarium. Yeah, a Solarium Greaves with movement speed, vitality, hybrid life, and then either cooldown recovery or just additional life, which is a fairly basic boot to pick up, right? So once again, I know in my head I want Solarium Greaves or a Taurus Path with LP, and this acts kind of like a post-it note to me. Other than that, we do want the best base for this build on the Helm, Ancestral Crown, incredible Werebear levels, Entangle Roots, and just a bunch of life. The Ancestral Garb is an incredible piece of gear for us, especially since we're cooldown based. We have armor life and cooldown recovery with strength and attunement and a bunch of life. We are aiming for 60 attunement and as much strength as we can, assuming there are no other beneficial mods on the gear available. Dragon Staff, elemental damage over time is incredible. Spell damage incredible. The base itself giving us more spell damage and +1 elemental skills is phenomenal. Slow and chill are not mandatory, they're just nice to have. You can find other suffixes you can add on to it that may have some purpose, but slow and chill are probably the most appropriate for this particular build. Yes, in terms of ring, Coral Ring is a good ring if you don't need additional resistances. Otherwise, you can go with an Ivory Ring. We're looking for elemental damage over time, some life, a big resistance, and then either strength or attunement based on what you still need. If you have 60 attunement, try to get strength or something. If you don't have 60 attunement yet, try to get attunement, which is what I have on the Ivory Ring. Strength, elemental damage, big resistance, life. And then, of course, we have strength, health, resistance, elemental damage over time on the Coral Ring. So you can kind of mix and match that, right? Speaking of mixing and matching, Crusader Gauntlets, we have strength attunement, as well as frailty. Assuming we don't have it on the necklace, we can get it over here. And a big resistance as well, which is very, very comfy. If you have an excess of resistance for some reason and you want to have a better glove base, you could opt for a plated gauntlet for more endurance, where you lose a little bit of armor, but that's okay. The endurance is very, very powerful. You can also go for melee attack speed over strength, I believe, or instead of attunement if you already have enough attunement elsewhere. Because I'm looking at only tier 5 crafted mods. You can get tier 6 and tier 7 mods, so maybe you have an abundance somewhere, so you might, or you might even want to add a 5th mod on it, like attunement, and then you can always opt for more melee attack speed and such. But this is kind of what I'm personally aiming for myself. In terms of the Spirit Catcher, yes, Spirit Catcher itself is incredible. Cold necrotic resistance, Warcry levels, more attunement if it's still necessary, a big resistance and some health. Other than that, yes, more health on the belt as well, elemental damage over time. The ward and the cleanse is not necessary per se, but it's very, very comfy to have because your cleanse that you have built into this particular build is not always up when you need it. And so to have the option to cleanse yourself when you do need it at any given time, assuming you have potions, is always very, very nice. So that is it for the gear. Let's discuss all the other aspects. So when it comes down to the skills, we are going to be running Swipe, Warcry, Maelstrom, Entangling Roots, and of course the Werebear form. This is where all the magic happens. As you can see, I've decided to spec them all up to 20 points. So if you don't have the bonus levels yet, don't worry about it. I will also tell you what to get once you do have the bonus levels. So when it comes down to the Werebear form, we want to pick up as soon as possible Ursine Storm, which also allows us to pick up Wizened Claws. This is why we need so much strength. And the Maelstrom being cast through Swipe is very, very good, or even Maul. On top of that, we pick up some Rage Sustain with Frenzied Strikes, 4 points. We also pick up 2 points of Invigoration for Rage and Health. We do pick up Fury of the Mole as well, because that's cooldown reduction on that Mole, and Mole helps us trigger Woodland Bear, which is the Entangling Roots node, which is really, really strong. So it kind of gets all tied together. Other than that, if you have excess points, I would recommend putting your 2 points in either Invigoration for health sustain and rage gain. Otherwise, you could also pick more Endurance or Endurance Threshold if you want to have more tank. But so it really depends on what you want to do. Do you want to be tankier, or do you want to have more comfy sustain? Now, if you have an excess sustain by using, for example, Tear and a Terra's Boots or a Terra's Path, you can just spec into Ursine's Heart and become even tankier. Very comfy, right? which is what I probably will do myself, assuming I'm permanently up and running. Entangling Roots, this is the big AoE. We do want to pick up Escapable Thicket, 4 points in Trapped, 1 point in Reclamation, 5 points in Noxious Grasp, 5 point Lethal Spine, 1 point in, of course, Overgrown Garden. Travel Notes for Shredding Vines into Winterknit Thorns. Now you have 4 points excessive, so where do you want to put them? I would recommend strongly putting them into Shredding Vines, capping that out for more shred, which is more damage, and then just any excess that you have on top of that, put them into Reclamation for more sustain. And that's pretty much it. In terms of Maelstrom, consider the following: 2 points in Arctic Chill, 5 points into Eye of the Storm. The AoE loss doesn't matter because we're going to be standing on top of people that need to die for single targets, so it's just more damage. Very, very good. 4 points in Whirlpool, 5 points in Turbulence, which is also why we need 60 attunement, for those who are wondering. Calm, 30, at least 2 points for now, 1 point in Windswept, 1 point in Wind Fury. That's going to really speed your character up noticeably. If you have excess points, you want to spend them into Calm for 3-4, and that's pretty much it. Warcry. This is a very lovely one, which is constantly triggered when you trigger Roar, which is your bear Warcry, basically. We want to pick up Whirlpool. That's the first thing we want to basically pick up if we want to start triggering Maelstrom with each Warcry. So 1 point Juggernaut, which gives us invulnerability. The healing as well with Breath of Eterra. The Cleanse, this is what I was talking about when discussing the belt, is very, very comfortable. 4 points in Whirlpool. On the right here, we want to go through Staggering Roar, 1 point of Kinetic Scream, 2 points a Visceral Howl, or Eviscerating Howl into Shallow Breath, which allows us to Warcry significantly more often, which allows us to trigger more cleansing, more healing, more whirlpooling. And then also down here, we want to pick up Berserker, Brutality, 2 travel points, and then 3 notes in Fury Strikes for more attack speed and such, which is really, really comfortable. Because swiping will help us trigger a bunch of things. So the more attack speed we have, the more we can trigger our Ursine Storm due to swipe and maul. And that's just going to be comfortable across the entire board. Now, we have 3 points excess right now. Right as it stands, you just pump them into Frostlaw. That's it. That's pretty much it. You and allies affected by Warcry deal increased cold damage for 4 seconds. If you have any more points, dump them into Frostlaw. That is pretty much all there is to it. If you don't have those points, you could temporarily spec them into something else, maybe some area if you want to, but I would just start getting ready for Frostclaw because that's just too much damage to give up anyway, so you want to get that in the end regardless. So, in terms of swipe, we do want to pick up some hit damage and hit leech, which helps with the sustain. Very comfortable. This is also how you can start leveling a swipe in the early game. I like to do that as well. Wingardium Reach. This is going to make swipe feel infinitely better. Without this, it feels really, really bad. And then, of course, also a kill threshold. So like a Culling Strike. Very, very nice on bosses specifically. Also 5 points in Aspect of the Panther. Then we pick up 1 point in Feline Hunter. So we can pick up 2 points in Lion Strength, which ties it all together. So that is it for the skills and how to further your investment into it if you have the excess points beyond 20. And now for the passive tree. Now the passive tree has been mostly solved for most druids, but let's go through it quite quickly. We know we need strength, we know we need attunement, we know we need tank and quality of life. So we're picking up natural attunement, 8 points, 7 points in primal strength, because we want to get 5 points in hunter restoration for the max increased health bonus. And then we're also picking up Berserker because that's another layer of tank, making us even more difficult to kill. If you feel like you're playing softcore and you don't care about dying, you could sacrifice these points to go elsewhere, but it is very, very comfortable to never worry about dying all that much. Shaman, 8 points of attunement and penetration. The Beastmaster Tax, 8 points in Ursine, 1 point in Savagery, 1 point in Ambush. Very nice attack speed and damage. I'd like to pick up 5 points in Boarheart, and then 5 points in Porcine Constitution, with 2 points in Boarheart at least. Some people like to spec more into this. Not really much of a problem. Some people like to also go this way with 4 points in Boarheart, 1 point in Call of the Pack for a little bit more health. Up to you. I prefer just rounding out the Boarheart trait, which is just looks better to me. Stupid reason. Don't judge me. So once you have paid the Beastmaster tax and you start investing into Druid, you pick up 5 points in Primordial Resonance to get the passive for more pen. 3 travel nodes in Plating, while also picking up 5 points in Thicket of Thorns for more defense, which is very, very good because we're going to get attacked very often. So this constantly procs and is active. 7 points in Druidic Prowess for more attunement and strength, as well as the bonus. It's just perfect around the board. 3 points in Focused Wrath, so we may pick up Rancor, so we no longer lose Rage. This is going to smooth out your permanent uptime of Werebearing. We also pick up 5 points here on Wind of the Leaves, just because of the attack speed, which is just very, very comfortable. 8 points in Piercing Gale. Cold Pen, Minion Cold. Not so much as important as the actual Cold Pen itself, and the 6-point bonus is also not very important, but the Cold Pen itself is very, very good. It's also a lovely travel note, as with the Harmonious Wisdom, 8 points to get the crit avoidance per attunement, which is also why having 60 attunement is so very strong in this build. Combine that together, it allows us to immediately skip all this end stuff and directly get into Impervious, which is insanely ridiculously strong with high attack speed, for the obvious reasons. On top of Height Skin giving us more health, as well as more maximum endurance, or at least endurance based on maximum health, which is why we're stacking so much health, because it's insanely strong. So putting it all together, you end up with a character that is ridiculously tanky, and just can smash most things by just lasting, like outlasting them, which is very, very, very nice. So hopefully that made sense. And if you have any questions, I'll try to see to them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night. Take care. And I am out.